The end of cash bail is a week away here in the state of Illinois, statewide, starting September 18th. If somebody's picked up with allegations that they've committed a crime, there will be no cash bail, meaning that for lower level crimes, they'll be let out pending trial. But for more serious crimes, they could be kept in jail until trial. So we'll get to some of what the Illinois ACLU had to say about the end of cash bail. But just to reflect back on what we had on Friday, when we talked with Ken Good. He is an attorney. He has a podcast. He's also part of the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. And Ken had some criticism of the state's no cash bail getting ready to take effect. And here's just, I guess, distilled down some of his major criticisms.
And what has Illinois done? Well, they got rid of the private industry. Of course, the chaos has increased. Now they're getting rid of cash bonds, not cash bail. I mean, across the country, they're used as synonymous for the private industry cash bail. No, it's cash bonds that you're getting rid of. And that's still not near as good as the private industry. That's why you've had chaos for those last few years. It's going to continue. It's going to get worse. Your criminal justice system will collapse unless they just are hiding it by dismissing cases until people decide to work together to find policies that will provide public safety.
So Ken Good, again, saying that our system will collapse unless something's done about this. He predicts that there could be a lot of people's cases that are just dismissed because he says they won't show up and it's going to clog the court system and things are going to be, as he said, chaotic. But I wanted to get the other side of this as well. So the ACLU of Illinois attorney Benjamin Ruddell connected with him on Friday, and he shared some of his thoughts as to the importance of this, but he also talked about how, hey, people are innocent until proven guilty, and they have a right of that, so they shouldn't have to languish behind bars awaiting trial.
Instead, judges are going to look at whether somebody who's accused of a serious crime would pose a threat to the safety of others or be a high risk to flee if they were released. And so the Pretrial Fairness Act really will restore the presumption of innocence that is supposed to be afforded to all people, but which has really been eroded by this over-reliance on a money bond system that makes the primary factor in whether somebody's in jail or released during the time when their case is pending, how much they have in their wallet or how much money their family can scrape together. That's just not fair, and it's not geared toward real public safety. The Pretrial Fairness Act will help move us in a more fair, just, and safe direction.
So during the debate around the Pretrial Fairness Act, which had to be changed multiple times from when it was originally passed in early 2021, you had questions about, well, what are the detainable offenses? Apparently, at one point, if you committed arson, you could have gotten out of jail after being processed and been free awaiting trial. Several other crimes were highlighted as, well, this is just crazy. But then they modified it and they made the net of detainable offenses larger and some of those more serious crimes. Ben Ruddell from the ACLU explaining that a bit.
Well, there will not be cash bail or money bail for any offense, serious or otherwise, because how much money somebody has simply has absolutely nothing to do with the real considerations that that courts are supposed to be looking at. That is the risk of flight from prosecution or harming somebody else. And so, we're very excited and proud that Illinois on September 18th is going to become the very first state to completely abolish the use of money bond. What that means is for courts are going to make a decision whether a person is going to be detained if the prosecutor is asking for them to be detained, or if they're going to be released, and if they're going to be released, then with what kind of conditions. The the ability to detain somebody, for a court to detain somebody on a first appearance, applies to the more serious offenses. And so, what those are generally crimes that are classified as forcible felonies. So involving some element of violence or threatening another person. Those crimes that are non-probationable, meaning if a person is convicted, they would be they're subject to a mandatory prison sentence. And then some select, crimes that are not felonies, but are, raise safety concerns, like gun cases and misdemeanor domestic violence cases. So those are all eligible for detention. It doesn't mean that the accused person is going to be jailed in every case. It'll be a case-by-case basis. The prosecutor will move for detention if they think that's what needs to happen. The court will evaluate the arguments and the evidence that are being made to show that the person is either likely to pose a threat to others or to flee from prosecution if they're released. And if the court is convinced, then they will order detention. If the prosecutor is not asking for detention, or the court doesn't find that the requisite level of evidence has been shown that the person can't be safely released, then they'll be released. And, again, they may be released with conditions, but nobody is going to languish in jail simply because they don't have money. It's going to be based on a court's determination of risk, based on the facts, circumstances of the individual case and the person who's accused.
So coming back, we'll hear from more of what Benjamin Ruddell from the ACLU of Illinois had to say of some of the critics who question what happens to those who don't show up to their court hearing, and also those who say that the no cash bail system is going to lead to chaos. So stay tuned. We'll get to that. Coming up next now at 6:52, I'm Greg Bishop. Hearing some of the ACLU of Illinois' talk of the no cash bail law that goes into effect September 18th, Benjamin Ruddell responding to the question of what about those criminal defendants who choose not to show up to their court dates?
The incentive to show up to court remains the same as it is currently. The threat of severe sanctions, including the loss of freedom for people who don't comply. That there are, the fact that somebody is released doesn't mean that they get to do anything they want. There are conditions that apply, and if somebody is not complying with the court's conditions, or they're arrested for a new crime, then, violation of their release conditions, including incarceration, are definitely on the table. So, and, you had asked about criminals being on the street, and just to, be clear, these are all people who are accused. Nobody's been found guilty yet. Everybody's presumed innocent, or supposed to be. But currently, people get out of jail pre-trial by paying a bond. If they can come up with the money, then they can be released.
But all of that changes in 1 week's time, where the end of cash bail statewide goes into effect. And people criticizing it as possibly creating chaos. And Ben Ruddell with the ACLU of Illinois says there is no study that he says shows that having cash bail leads to people showing up to their court dates. So obviously we'll be looking at this from different angles because there's an increased taxpayer cost that's expected. And you've got others who are just simply concerned about public safety, saying that this measure won't make the public more safe. It could lead to recidivism. It could lead to a whole host of other things. So there's going to be a lot going down in the next week about the issue of no cash bail in the state of Illinois, being the first state to do so.
From the Fly SPI